Welcome inside my Villa Park, not parlor. A little more elaborate than the parlor. I thought of an analogy here as I've waited 43 years to come to Villa Park finally. Imagine if you were in a long-distance online relationship for 43 years and you decided, I'm going to actually finally meet this individual after 43 years and consummate the relationship, and then you show up and you're disappointed. That's not what happened here. I showed up after 43 years of supporting this club, and it was everything and more that I could have imagined. First of all, when you're actually here and you realize that there's 130 years worth of players playing on that pitch, you could feel that. And everything is so much more intimate rather than when you're encumbered by the screen of the television. Like, to see the whole game, to see it all together is incredible. In fact, it looks smaller when you're here live. But the biggest thing is how you and the fans here have embraced me, which is absolutely incredible. And I feel so totally humbled and frankly overwhelmed. Like, this is all very surreal. How many people came up and said hello? It was absolutely amazing. And I think of all the things, not only seeing Villa Park live for the first time was incredibly bucket list worthy, but it was how friendly and how much of a family member I feel like I am right now. So for that, I can't thank you enough, because without you, I'm not here today. There's no question about that. And let's keep her going and make this an annual thing, maybe. And time to review the show, too, and go through the bits and pieces as we look back on Aston Villa 2, Nottingham Forest 0. Welcome inside Holy Trinity Show's temporary headquarters, right in the mixer on Broad Street, which is just over there, as we are in a temporary flat. The only regret and minor disappointment about Saturday was that I wasn't able to record the entire show at the stadium. But I mean, that's just a minor issue of semantics. It's just as nice to be in here, frankly. But the really big, overarching issue from my first ever visit to Villa Park was, it's nice to have a beautiful traditional stadium. It's also nice to have history. Not everybody's won a European Cup, and we really do need to honor those who allowed all of us to chirp at Manchester City and some of the other clubs to say that we won a European Cup and you did not. I think fans, especially the younger ones, should be forced into learning about those players and that team and making sure that we never forget the alumni. And I'm going to be talking to one of them during the course of this show. But despite a nice stadium and despite great history, what really matters is the community. And of all the things that absolutely stood out for me for the Forest match was what a wonderful community bordering on family that Villa has. Because I was accepted and valued and embraced legitimately and sincerely. And I felt the exact same way towards every single person who came up to me and said hello and can I have a picture? Because without you and those people, as I've said numerous times, I'm not making this trip and I'm probably not doing this show. So as long as we keep Villa Nation together, look after one another, and maintain that community, which is the most important thing. And in fact, this religious analogy is so, so true, because the stadium looks like a church from the outside, complete with stained glass and brick. And of course, there's history built into that site. You have the choir, the Holt End, singing. Sometimes they're singing in happiness, sometimes they're singing in sadness, but every weekend, people come together and they sing for their club. And I am deeply, deeply proud, now that I've been there in person, to call myself an Aston Villa supporter. When Chris Woods is not playing striker for Nottingham Forest, or not playing at all, he is a co-owner of this suite with a fine man by the name of Tony Gibson, and who were kind enough to allow me to join you in this game and for Newcastle. Chris, first of all, thank you so much. It's been a bucket list item, seriously, for me.
No, thank you very much, Peter. It's been an absolute pleasure to host you, host Sandra here, and host your friends here today. It's been an absolute pleasure, and also we got the result. Europe, here we come. So I'm absolutely really excited to see what's going to happen in the future. Newcastle next week, big game, 3 points there. Fingers crossed, you never know. That top 6, top 7 space could be waiting for us.
Such happy times, 6th right now as it stands. And when you're not hosting people at the suite and being a super host, by the way, what do? You're an entrepreneur, and you have some services that our viewers may need.
Absolutely, yeah. So when I'm not a full-time Aston Villa fan watching my favourite football team, I do Cyber Q Group. So we do a lot around cyber security, protecting businesses, protecting individuals to make sure that they don't get hacked and to make sure that their business remains protected all of the time.
And the business name is, which I will put as a barcode on the screen,
Cyber Q Group and cyberqgroup.com.
But that's not all. You're an Acorns ambassador.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so part of obviously Aston Villa has a strong history with Acorns, obviously with the sponsorship under Randy Lerner. Probably one of the most understated things that Randy Lerner actually did. Acorns is a phenomenal charity, fantastic charity that Aston Villa's got some great history. So part of my role there as an ambassador is just to raise awareness about Acorns and to get people to join, to get people to help raise money for the Children's Hospice, which is a phenomenal place. So if people want to do that, get involved in Acorns Hospice, feel free to reach out to me or to reach out to you, Peter.
I cannot wait until seeing you again for Newcastle, and thank you for being such a great host and for allowing me to come and join you.
No, my absolute pleasure. Thank you, Peter. Great to meet you. Thank you.
Really big moment. Having a couple of pints and some of the best Thai food I've ever tasted at Tony Barton's Arms, which I know a little bit about. And when you're inside that pub, you can feel the Villa history, the colors. I'm sure every last tile could tell a story about the modern day history of Aston Villa. I'm only sad that I didn't pack my Stone Island gear because I felt a little ill-prepared. However, meeting some lovely Irish Villa fans who were just in for the day and flying back that night more than made up for it. I'm with the tour sponsor, Richard Davies, Vice President, General Manager at Midland Honda, Villa fan. Not the first time you've been here, Richard. First of all, I got to say thank you so much for sponsoring this, because this has been one of the bucket list days of my life.
Absolute pleasure, Pete. What a fantastic game, eh? Unbelievable energy. Stadium was the loudest I've ever heard, period. The Holt End, it's the beginning and the end. I've never heard such a loud stadium in my life. I still have goosebumps. I came 4 inches off my seat today, Pete. It was unbelievable, wasn't it?
So the next time Richard is sitting in the Holt End and he's going to look for tickets for it. But this isn't your first time here either, is it?
My third time. Both I saw Southampton, and I think a while ago, many years ago, it was another club. I can't remember. It doesn't matter because it wasn't Villa. Unbelievable game today. Villa was played well in the second half. First half, not so much, but the second half was fantastic.
And you have family here in the area too, so it's doubly meaningful, and you managed to see some people, and so I guess we're going to see you also at Newcastle, but were you able to get in some visits?
Absolutely, and I'm going to see a couple more family friends while I'm here. It's fantastic, right? So exciting.
And how can people go get a brand new, say, I don't know, Honda CRV from Midland Honda from anywhere across Canada? Because you could ship by rail, I understand.
Yes, we're not fussy. We'll sell anyone a car, Pete. Yeah, absolutely. 705-526-1344. You call us, we'll sell you a car. No
Awesome.
question. You got to be a Villa fan, Pete.
Oh, yeah, well, of course, Toronto Lions. I'm looking at you. Again, Richard, for your generosity, thank you so much.
Welcome, Pete. An absolute pleasure. What a game, eh?
Let's make it a yearly thing. How about
so. I got to think so, Pete. Fantastic. Thank you.
The match overview, you probably don't need me to tell you this if you were there or you watched it on television, but Forest had absolutely zero desire to play. They would have been over the moon with 0-0, so they dropped 10 men behind the ball. It was 4-5-1 and very tight lines between those banks of players. Mid to low block, which is never a good recipe for Aston Villa. And I'm sure Steve Cooper told his players, do not let McGinn, Louise, or Ramsey or Buendia get on the ball. Don't allow them to turn and play and attack. And credit to them, they did that very, very well. They had no problem allowing Konza and Mings to carry the football because they knew those two players likely were not going to play the ball that would unlock the Forest defense. And it was very, very credible and decent from Forest up until halftime. I've never seen Aston Villa with that many stray balls played straight into touch or mistimed runs. That almost reminded me a little bit of the Steven Gerrard days in the first half. But to pull out a really classic football cliche, good teams find ways to win when they're not playing well. A cliche which was actually used as I sat and spoke with one of my idols on Saturday night. So I'm just knocking about, and who do I bump into? None other than Aston Villa legend, and one of the players that inspired me to be an Aston Villa fan in the first place. Is he a sir yet? Sir Tony Morley? You're not a sir yet, have you been?
Nice to meet you. Have you had a good day?
I mean, I'm going to wake up tomorrow and go, what just happened? My first game at Aston Villa. I got to meet you. So, I mean, I'm overwhelmed at the moment. And to be honest, Tony, I've been meaning if I ever had the chance to bump into you, because I thought I might, I had like 4 questions I wanted to ask.
Well, I do apologise. I've had a few drinks, which don't matter, but thank you very much for
You've had a few drinks and you're still more coherent than me because I'm jet lagged to the hilt here. But if I may, you scored one of my favorite goals of all time, and that was the one against Everton. Yeah. Do you ever put on the VHS or whatever you have those goals on and watch yourself play and revel in your own glory?
No. But I've got a great thing on my ceiling. Well, I've got to get it. No, I don't know. Listen, yeah, I was very fortunate. I scored the goal. Very lucky. I scored a goal this season. It's going to go down in history, really, be fair to you. And no, listen, and it's against my team, the team I support, Everton. So it's a privilege, really, in a way that I scored the Villa, but against my own team. And there was all my family there. Can't believe it. They're all Everton supporters, but no, I was very, very lucky.
So you're saying you don't watch yourself play ever from the old days?
Not really, no, at all. I'm very lucky, man, that I've been a great team, Aston Villa. Very fortunate. We were very successful, and I won a few things, and I was grateful. And unfortunately, I've met you tonight. I've had a few drinks today. I know you're going to put this in Canada. You're thinking, what's Tony Morley talking about? But listen, thank you very much, because you're a lovely man. First time I met you.
I'm eternally grateful that you're doing this.
You said 4 questions.
Okay, well, it might only actually be 3. If you look at today's footballers, because your style was, I don't even know how to describe it, bustling, you were busy, but you had a finish at the end of it. Is there any current player right now you watch and you go, that guy actually reminds me of me?
No, they're all worth £1 million, 100 million. I'll go say Messi. No.
There you go. I also want to know, because I know who you are. I mean, I grew up with you, and so people of my generation understand, but are the alumni of the club, are they still a fabric of the club? Are you treated like royalty, that you did set the foundation in so many ways for Aston Villa?
No, unfortunately, not, to be fair. He was 25 years at Aston Villa Football Club. He wasn't a photograph. The lads who won the European Cup and all that. But changed now. Hopefully, if Villa get into Europe now, they might get a bit more responsible. The lads who play European football, that's it.
Yeah, you said that earlier. You said the owners actually make you believe that there could be European football for Villa.
I'll tell you what, man. I think the club in the best position they've ever been in 40 years. In my time, I've been involved in the club. I look at the club, I think, well, they're going in the right direction. I would love to be, if I was a young lad now, playing football now, I want to join Aston Villa. So I think they're going in the right direction. I really do.
All right, here's one for the memory bank. This is my 4th question. So this is it. Obviously, the European Cup was an incredible moment. You had a massive hand in it. But was there a favored, most treasured moment that, that you want to be remembered for, or the one that you would be willing to relive again and again?
Iceland away. Miss World wanted to speak to me. True story. Miss World wanted to speak to me. Miss World in Iceland. And you'll appreciate that, won't you?
A legendary footballer with a highlight reel of credentials, but it was Miss World from Iceland.
Yes, at the dance. Marvellous. Can't believe it. Listen, I didn't end up with her.
And this is why we spoke Tony Morley.
Listen, this is going to be a disaster, isn't it?
It's perfect. It's perfect. I will bleep. No. What an absolute legend. And as I said earlier, if you're a younger Villa fan, you need to learn a little bit about Tony Morley and Dennis Mortimer and Gordon Cowans and all of the greats that made up that team with Evans. I mean, I can go down the list, obviously, but, those alumni cannot be forgotten. They're the ones that allow us to sing about the European Cup. And that portion of the Holy Trinity show on location in Birmingham is brought to you by the Aston Villa online store, which I didn't even need to use on Saturday. I just walked into the actual one where I got this because this wasn't available anymore in the online store, but it was in the real store. But if you happen to be, in the market for replica kit or any of the late season gear, which is all still on sale, I put a link in the description below. If you use that link, it's not going to cost you more money, but you will be supporting the show. I'll never forget it for as long as I live, and I know every other Aston Villa fan will say it just like I have on their first pilgrimage to Villa Park, to the church, to the Mecca. It is a life-changing moment, especially if you've supported the club for 43 years. As I welcome you to the traveling Holy Trinity show, the 3 key issues or moments that defined Aston Villa 2, Nottingham Forest 0, starting with the key statistics dominated by the home side in what was not the most enthralling affair, especially in the first half. I looked at offside as one marker. The only metric that Forest had our number in was corners. They had 8 to our 1. Non-existent XG for the visitors. I'm not sure if Emi Martinez would have an easier day. And everything else went Villa's way. But look at how many times Forest was caught offside. I was actually irritated that we got caught offside once because for the most part, we've been so good at staying onside. This was a big issue, and it's a theme with Aston Villa, that a player who looked like he was literally on his way out the door earlier this season has become an absolute monster for us, and that's Tyrone Mings. The whole captaincy thing doesn't seem to matter too much now, does it? Because this lad is dialed in. And the great thing about being at the game live and being able to see the whole overview of the pitch is, first of all, you do get to see how disciplined Villa were in this game, because my goodness, when they come out together. But Tyrone Mings, there was a moment in the second half, you may recall, late. Forest was breaking hard down the right, and it looked like there was room to attack the goal. And Tyrone Mings, first of all, got his distances absolutely correct. You're told as a defender, close down as fast as you can, but then you got to get your distances right. Force the player to make the decision. Don't dive in, which he didn't. He kept his feet moving. He was just jockeying beautifully. There was absolutely no way around him. And I said earlier that maybe John McGinn has had the biggest turnaround under Unai Emery. I'm starting to rethink that. I think it is, in fact, Tyrone Mings, who spoke about Unai Emery this week and what it's like to work underneath him and how demanding he is and how meticulous he is on details. But what's happening is the players are getting it. What's done on Monday and Tuesday translates into the tactical plan on Thursday and Friday, and they are all now becoming demanding of each other and themselves. And we are seeing the proof. And the last big issue, and I hate to be negative because it was just one game, but ooh, did Emi Buendia have a tough Saturday afternoon. Statistically, 66% passing completion record. How many times did he fail to connect on a through ball or a simple pass, and then he did the jump in the air in frustration? He didn't win a single aerial duel. He lost half of his ground duels, 40% long ball accuracy. This is a player that needs to create, and we've said this about Emi Buendia a few times. And at about 55 minutes or so, I said to Woodsy next to me, I said, what change would you make? And he goes, I don't know. And I said, Buendia's got to come off, and Dendoncker needs to come on, partially because we just need a little bit more aerial presence for what will probably be a few more set plays coming our way, and Emi Buendia was bullied off of every single set piece. It was happening right below us, and it was embarrassing to watch, frankly. And I know that there's a player in there, but we really need Phil Coutinho to come back and be healthy, because we have to have options in that role. And I still, in my heart of hearts, believe Phil Coutinho has a lot to offer this team, especially if there is this carrot of European football that is dangling about Villa Park right now. Big issue or moment number 3. Watkins waving the wand again. Ollie Watkins, he so calmly and ruthlessly buried the 2-0 goal to take it up to 12 goals on the season. By the way, do these players put KY lubricant on their knees in order to slide like that on the Villa Park pitch? You can't do that on AstroTurf in North America, let me tell you. You'll rip your knees off trying that. But this guy gets some good distance on his slides, and why not? We have not seen a purple patch like this for Villa in the Premier League for a very long time. And isn't it interesting that now all of a sudden we're starting to hear rumors of perhaps an extension to Ollie Watkins' contract? Pretty reliable sources behind those too, by the way, and I think he fully deserves it, even with these Tammy Abraham links that are persisting. But you could feel it even from the PA announcers' introductions of the team. Villa Park and the Villa faithful have long forgotten the misses from earlier this season, and they have fallen head over heels in love with Ollie Watkins again. Big issue number 2, Bailey bailing. As I said about Emi Buendia earlier, Leon Bailey had a tough time in the first half of that game, and both of those players fall into similar categories. Sometimes flashes of pure brilliance, bona fide Premier League players. Other times, they look like they might actually struggle in Sunday League. And when your only consistency is inconsistency, that's a worry, and it needs to be addressed in the market, because I think both of those players certainly have squad value. There could be turnarounds like so many other Villa players, but right now, without the depth, they're forced to play. And the thing about both Buendia and Bailey that I believe the Villa fans and I agree on is that we want them to succeed so badly. I don't want any player to fail. Never. If you're the type of person that wants a player to fail, that's not a very good look. And both of these guys fall in the same category, the cute and cuddly category. And who doesn't love cute and cuddly? If you don't love cute and cuddly, there's something wrong with you. So when Leon Bailey hobbled off after this moment, which was our best moment in the first half, and by the way, Keylor Navas did get a touch on that ball before it crossed the byline. That should have been a corner. Everybody was saying, how did Ollie Watkins miss? Well, no, the goalkeeper got a piece of it. Regardless, when he hobbled off the park, 2 thoughts came immediately to mind. Number 1, Bertrand Traore is going to get a chance to follow up on his spectacular Tuesday exploits and get a chance to maybe show more of what he can do. But then also immediately after that came the thought of our depth and lack of it. In fact, it was comical looking at the back of the program and seeing that we had, 21 names, and Forrest had 35 names listed. I mean, we are so thin right now. The last thing we need is another injury, especially if we have legitimate and serious designs on attacking those higher floors, the ones with the really nice views in the apartment building. And the number 1 big issue or moment that defined Aston Villa 2, Nottingham Forest 0, birdies back to back. So there was a serendipitous outcome to the Leon Bailey injury in that Bertrand Traore was able to come on and perhaps follow up on his Tuesday exploits. And as I said after the Leicester game, you know it's going well when you just come on and practically your first touch goes over the goalkeeper and in for the game winner, or the ball takes a fortuitous bounce and lands right at your feet for you to bury home in the early stages of a second half that absolutely changes the entire complexion of a match and forces Nottingham Forest to now come out and play. And that's how it's going for Bertrand Traore. That's how it's going for Aston Villa, and we may have to depend on Bertie for quite some time, depending on the severity of the Bailey injury. It's a scene that will never, ever get old, especially now having experienced it live. As we update the points and the categories that we've been following for the last couple of seasons, you know there's going to be improvement with a comfortable home victory. The record at Villa Park is really getting to where it needs to be. Another goal for Ollie Watkins. It's 16 between he and Bailey this season. Against the bottom six, look at how ruthless we've been. 26 of a possible 36 points. That's impressive. And Emi Martinez now one clean sheet away from double digits on the season. All right, time to scout our next opponents. Newcastle United in for the lunchtime kickoff on Saturday. Oh my goodness, I cannot wait. They were in action against Brentford on the weekend. Winners 2-1, two teams that we are going to have to face and battle in those you-know-what positions. And as I said before, I think it's better to be the team that is coming up rather than the teams that are there and trying to maintain, because a lot of those teams have been there for quite some time and are now starting to look over their shoulder. It was a very good Saturday results-wise for Villa to be all the way up to sixth place as it is, and just 6 points behind the next rung on the ladder. And Eddie Howe's Newcastle, as I said earlier this season, should serve as encouragement for us in terms of how fast things can turn around with the right kind of recruitment. Not complete overhauls, but sprinkling in players that upgrade in positions of needs. And I think we have the better manager. I think we have committed owners. So if we follow that same strategy, could be our turn to have a significant rise next season. I've heard from several people that are relatively close to the scene that one of the big reasons behind the Toons' success is the leadership of Kieran Trippier, which actually surprised me a little bit because he doesn't have sort of the physical stature, which is, not a slight on the smaller players, but he's a guy who's earned his stripes, and he would have played under a very demanding manager as a foreigner at Atletico Madrid. And of course, he's doing it for his country as well. And everybody that talks about this guy says he is a model and consummate professional. And that sets the tone in the Newcastle dressing room. But boy, this is going to be a big challenge, not an insurmountable challenge. In North America, we kind of call this a statement game. You want to talk about Europe? This is the game that you talk about Europe, and you let your game do the talking. And we can 100% assume, without any trepidation, that this game will be 180 degrees different from what we witnessed against Nottingham Forest on Saturday. Newcastle is a team that wants to play football and attack, and they're going to be motivated by a noisy and very vibrant traveling Magpies support. Guimaraes is an excellent player. What a pickup he's turned out to be. He's central to all of it. Alexander Isak is now starting to show why they paid such good money for him. Even Anthony Gordon and even Dan Burn, bringing a Geordie guy back up there to play with his hometown club. These are all very shrewd moves. And hopefully we rise to that challenge on Saturday, because it is going to be an absolutely crackling atmosphere. Back here next week. Can't wait. It'll be a very different game against Newcastle, you have to believe. I mean, they're chasing Europe. They like to play. They like to attack. And Villa is also chasing Europe. So it's going to be a crackling affair. I cannot wait. I feel like I got my practice first game out of the way. I lost my Villa Park virginity today, and it ended very quickly and with some disappointment, potentially, because the game wasn't great. Next week, I'll be in full stride. Until then, be well, stay positive. Come on, Villa. And as always, where's my cup? Well, I'll just use this one. Up the mighty Villa.